Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. In this Hearthstone Mercenaries Fighters Upgrading and Leveling Guide, I'm going to take a look at all of the fighter mercenaries currently in the game and what abilities and what equipment should you focus on first. When you complete the entire task chain of a mercenary, and task chains are pretty easy to acquire nowadays, you get enough coins to max one ability and one equipment, and then you still have some leftover coins after that. Or you could of course also max like 2 abilities and no equipment. So that's really the baseline of this guide. Like, what do you focus on first so that you get the mercenary into a playable state, and then you can start working towards maxing it. Balinda Stonehearth is one of the strongest mercenaries in the game. Just a phenomenal addition to fire comp, phenomenal addition to frost comp, just very, very strong. And typically the strongest piece of equipment for Balinda is less a water elemental, because that water elemental freezes targets, so that just allows you to do much more challenging content. Some people also do play with the lesser fire elemental. It's not a bad piece, it makes you even more explosive, gives you even more damage, but it also makes this more glass cannon-like. So typically I would recommend maxing the lesser water elemental and maxing the flame dart, so that then this is fully usable in fire comp. Also frost dart useful for frost comp, and then after you have flame dart, frost dart and the water elemental, then work on your frost burn. Blademaster Samuro is one of your first mercenaries and one of your strongest mercenaries as well, the real core of the budget comp. And with Blademaster Samuro, there's two potential equipments that you can use. You can use either Burning Blade or you can use the Sash of Illusion. I prefer the Burning Blade because I prefer those immediate stats, immediate effect. Typically mercenaries games don't last many turns, so getting more stats on the board at once is typically more powerful than getting an extra copy at some point. So I start by maxing Burning Blade, maxing the Double Strike, working on Mirror Image, and then working on the Whirling Blade. Captain Galvangar can be a strong addition to all comps because of this equipment. Fury of the Frost Wolf, passive, friendly characters have +5 attack. Also useful from task completion, generally just very, very strong, so max this piece of equipment first. That's the most important part. Then you can start to work on your Fatal Strike, Frightening Shout, Rending Cleave. You can work on all of the abilities pretty evenly, just max the equipment first. Diablo used to be a powerhouse and one of the main mercenaries used in PvP, but its popularity has waned over time. Diablo still has two pieces of good equipment. Both Claws of Terror and Black Soulstone are playable. That attack just makes Diablo more of an immediate threat, but typically you would use Black Soulstone. So I recommend maxing Black Soulstone first, together with Fire Stomp. Fire Stomp, just that Soulstone Fire Stomp, that combination is typically what Diablo is used for, either in PvP or in some of the PvE puzzles where Diablo is used as the solution. Once you have your Fire Stomp ready, you can work on Apocalypse and then Doom Charge. Edwin basically has one job, and that is to make your other pirates faster, so Black Flag. You want to max your Black Flag, that's the most important piece of Edwin. Once you're done with Black Flag, you work on your Assassin's Blade, so that you can use both of these, and then as is the Striking Wismouth, you can then start to work on those pretty evenly. Elise Starseeker is mostly used for her Golden Monkey, so get your Monkey's Paw maxed, get your quest for the Golden Monkey maxed, and then start working on the other abilities. Eudora's main strength are her cannons, so primed armaments, max your primed armaments. That's a very powerful piece of equipment. Then start to work on your coup d'etat and your other abilities. Illidan doesn't currently see a lot of play, but Illidan has had its moments as a bench mercenary, sometimes when you need something to counter reds. So typically I would go for Razor Fist and Winged Assault, just more damage first is typically better, although there are some uses for Demon Shroud and the other abilities as well, but Razor Fist, Winged Assault first. King Krush can be a strong farming merc, because King Krush, Apex Predator, attack the lowest held enemy, death blow, repeat this, so King Krush can just wipe clear entire boards. You want to max Flaming Claws, because that passive attack is really important to make your Apex Predator as strong as possible. Some people prefer to leave Apex Predator at rank 4, so that it's a little bit slower, so that there are more opportunities to synergize it with other things, but I prefer to max it. Either way, Flaming Claws max, Apex Predator at least rank 4, then Terrify and Devilsaur. Lady Anacondra is a rare nature fighter. There are not a lot of nature fighters around, but Lady Anacondra is not very strong. It sometimes was used in budget comps, but nowadays not even that much there. Cookie kind of has taken over her place. But Serpent's Bite Toxic Venom for dealing more damage is good. Mend Beast is also a useful ability sometimes, especially for completing some task with Lady Anacondra, in which cases you also want to use Signal of the Wilds as equipment, but Signal of the Wilds is not upgradable anyway, so once you acquire it, you have it. So Venom, Serpent's Bite, then the Beast, and Vipers are quite insignificant. Lady Vashj could be central to Naga if Naga were really a playable comp, because this Icy Grasp equipment is pretty promising. However, what you want to maximize first is Electrify. Electrify is a really strong ability, you want to get as much damage out of that as possible. After that it gets a little bit trickier, because after Electrify you have like Reflex Shot, then you have Icy Grasp if you play this with other Naga, or Fell Cauldron if you play this without other Naga. Either way, Handmaid's Poison and Witch's Mantle are not very important, so you can simply ignore those at the start and start with Electrify and then start to work on depending on what you're trying to do with Vashj. Leeroy Jenkins can sometimes deal a lot of damage, especially with Leeroy Jenkins. The level of Leeroy Jenkins that you need really depends on how many opponents are you going to be facing. So my Leeroy Jenkins, for example, here is rank 3, attack up to 4 different enemies, and that's typically already enough. Even rank 2 Leeroy Jenkins is already pretty strong. Then Wild Swing, you really want to max that Wild Swing, but for the equipment, I'm using even bigger sword here, because I've been doing some Leeroy solo stuff and stuff, but Ninja Looting is generally the stronger piece of equipment. So you probably want to max your Ninja Looting, upgrade Leeroy Jenkins a little bit, max your Wild Swing, and that's how you roll. The best way to deal damage with Lord Slitherspear is to use U-Lift Pro when you have another Naga. So you want to max U-Lift Pro and you want to max Fishy Cauldron. That makes Lord Slitherspear deal as much damage as possible. Then you want to work on your enough of this trash, but Slithering Rage isn't very useful. Those Nagas are being summoned from that are not that great, so generally I would leave that one for last. Murky's main use is in farming comps with Yashuraj, where the thing that Murky does is March of the Murlocs. Murky summons stuff for Yashuraj to steal attack from. So when you're playing as Murky, March of the Murlocs, Slime Time, because Slime Time is a very powerful ability. You can choose what is going to be taunted, so that can be used in multiple comps as a guaranteed way to gain access to a specific enemy. So max your March, max your Slime Time, then start to work on Bubbly Bubble, and finally last, Pufferfish. Mutanus is the most durable tank in the entire game. So when working on your Mutanus, you want to max your Iridescent Necklace, you want to max your Scaly Taunt. These to full, and Mutanus can take so much punishment. Mutanus' problem really is that it doesn't deal a lot of damage, and it's not very good at protecting your other characters from anything else but attacks, so there are places where Mutanus can't really go. But Iridescent Necklace, Scaly Taunt, max these, then start to work on your Devouring Attack, and finally Devour. Nefarian is really powerful in a budget dragon comp, and Nefarian is also sometimes used in farm comps with Yashuraj. The difference is that in dragon comp it's of course used with Chromatic Dragonflight, start of game give friendly dragons +6 attack. That's a really strong piece of equipment. Whereas in Yashuraj farm comps, Experimental Subjects is a better equipment. But it doesn't have to be that high level, so that's okay. You want to max your Chromatic Dragonflight, you want to max your Draconic Rush, and then start to work on the other abilities. Old Murk-Eye can summon more Murlocs and also make all of those Murlocs attack, although Old Murk-Eye doesn't see a ton of play nowadays. But Old Murk-Eye, Bubble Wand is the best piece of equipment, Bubble Wand, Finvasion. These are really what you want to work on first, and then the summons. It's also possible to play Old Murk-Eye in some kind of Murloc buff comps, where you would use Navigator's Amulet, and you would want to max your Felfin Navigator first. But typically Finvasion, Bubble Wand first, and then start to work on these others is the right way to go. Old Murk-Eye is only a rare, so you are going to get a lot of coins for him over time. Rathorian doesn't currently see any play, so it's kind of difficult to evaluate how you would build Rathorian because, well, it doesn't see any play. I'm going for the Demon's Mark Fell command here, but you could also go for Demonic Ashes and Hulking Overfiend. Overall, I think the Demon's Mark Fell command approach is the stronger one. Rexxar is sometimes used to support beast comps, and for that purpose, Mama Bear's Claws, an excellent piece of equipment. You really want to max your Mama Bear's Claws so that you can play Rexxar together with King Krush, and then you want to max your Kill command, because Kill command is the only ability you can use on turn 1 that's really influential in every single game. Once you're done with Mama Bear's Claws and Kill command, work on your Explosive Shot, and Animal Companion comes in last. Rokara's main use is in a combo comp together with Cornelius and Mr. Smite, where Rokara has one job, and that job is to use Offensive Rally to give Mr. Smite as many stats as possible. So you want to max your Helm of Inspiration, you want to max your Offensive Rally, and then start to work on the other abilities. Scabbs is an interesting mercenary and potentially a pretty big damage dealer, but it just doesn't synergize too well with anything else because none of the abilities have a spell school, and Scabbs is a gnome, so no synergies from tribe either. But the best way that I have used Scabbs so far have been to make really big Wicked Stabs. So Wicked Stab, max Paring Knife. That's my main advice. There would be some opportunities to use like Honing Rod, Shadowblade stuff, but I just haven't found a good way to really make use of them. Sinestra is an incredibly powerful dragon and one of the key pieces of dragon comp. The downside of Sinestra is that Sinestra really needs quite a lot of coins because you want to do so many things with her. But Mana Brooch is by far the best equipment, so you want to max Mana Brooch and you want to max Mana Barrier. That will give Sinestra so many healing abilities. After those you want to work on your Twilight Extinction and finally last work on the Racking Swipe. Sylvanas doesn't see a lot of play at the moment, but there are a couple of ways that you can use Sylvanas. If you use Sylvanas in PvP, you typically use Death Valley, deal damage equal to Smirk's attack to all enemies, and you want to max your Reclaimed Souls, so that you can get a lot of attack and then Sylvanas can wipe the opponent's team. If you use Sylvanas in PvE, then you're more into Mournblade and Banshee Bolt. The main use of Tavish Stormpike is rigged wiring and explosive traps. Explosive traps with Tavish are sometimes just really strong. There are a couple of encounters where you use Tavish just for that. So I would max explosive trap, I would max rigged wiring, then I would start to work on aimed shot. Once that is maxed, then I would work on bear trap and high power rounds, which are also sometimes useful. Tirion Fordring's main uses are in PvP, in buff comps where Tirion is going to buff your bench, so for that purpose you would want to max your Ashbringer and you would want to max your Judgment of Humility, and then start to work on the other abilities. If you use Tirion in PvE, then you typically want to use Tyrion's Shield instead, but Tirion doesn't have a lot of good PvE uses. Turael can potentially deal a lot of damage as part of Holy Cob, but that damage goes to a single target, so Turael is not seeing a ton of use. However, you would want to max Divine Blade Strike and Eldruin to maximize Turael's damage potential, and then start to work on the other abilities. Tyrande is one of the 3 mercenaries, so you get Tyrande immediately, and Tyrande is a lot of fun. For Tyrande, the Arcane Salvo ability is just incredibly powerful. You want to maximize that. So you want Arcane Salvo and Verdant Recurve, max these, put everything else into Arcane Shot, so then you have these abilities usable. Elun's Grace can wait until you have everything else ready, and there are some niche uses for Elun's Charm equipment, so don't completely forget that one. Valeera's main job typically is to go into stealth and make everyone else faster, so max your Unnatural Smoke, max your Sinister Strike, and then start to work on the other abilities. Varok Saurfang is typically an opener merc in all comps, and I like to use Serrated Shield on Varok, because that makes Varok so much more survivable. Some people like to use Serenized Stompers, but I don't think the long-term gains are more useful than the short-term immediate survivability. So I would max Serrated Shield and Mobilizing Strike first, and then work on Whirlwind and the Berserker. Master Voone is typically used for the Evasive Worm, so you want to max your Worm Claws, you want to max your Evasive Worm, and you want to put as much power into your Axe Throw as possible, whereas Fire Breath can wait a little. Rathian does not see a lot of play at the moment, so it's a little bit difficult to evaluate what to max first on Rathian. Typically I like Horn of Rathian, Tail Swipe and True Form, so I would work on those 3 first, and then on Creeping Madness. Shuen can fill a role similar to Yashuraj in that it can just borrow attack from your own mercenaries and then pounce something real hard. For that purpose, you want Celestial's Chestplate and you want Pounce. These are the abilities you want to max first on Shuen, and then you can start to work on Tiger Lightning and Equalizing Strikes. So far good uses for Yrel have not really been found. Wrath of the Lightbound, it's in theory it's very powerful AoE, but the 2 cooldown it's just a killer, it just makes it so much worse. So Libra of Wisdom still looks like the best piece of equipment here. Libra of Wisdom, then work on the Wrath of the Lightbound, and then Radiant Light and Vindicator's Fury. And that's it for Fighter Mercs. I hope that these guidelines will help you get your mercenaries into a playable shape as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the content, Please click the like button, subscribe to my channel, and check out my Twitch channel.